Eh? In. Eh?
So push it in.
In.
Push from like.
Mm.
Oh, that's why. That's why it was hard. We push it like a minute ago.
No, about a minute.
Okay. One experiment is done. Good. This is good. This is nice. That's nice. Now. How was your life? Just on all the channels except this one. This is true. So costume so شايف. I didn't touch anything. So, кстати, очень надо тут соль. still have like 6 minutes.
Hmm.
Okay, so one experiment is going to nice, meaning angithi uma besifase ngahlaba ngoba akube nabasabona marketing Facebook YouTube but ukube khona baku-YouTube manje hayi bayasibona and kube khona baku-Dr. Friend bayasibona sasithi bonke abantu bafokhasa kuma-channel. Facebook page. No Facebook page. Sure. And it is the channel. Nice. Facebook page. YouTube. And the way. Ukhona iwani Facebook page. Ukhona la Facebook page yakho. Ukhona ufollow Facebook page yakho. Iwani.
That's fully aircon.
And it's something let's see fine. What's make you do? Let's see procrastinate. Okay. About which I'm done. Move forward and which I'm done now. About your nature, you are life on your page. Come on, something. This is the last time.
I think I'll just put you in a swap. I'll put him in pause. We want to stop it.
I don't understand it now. It's preparing to go live.
Okay, there she is. Okay.
Hi,
Hi, Naledi. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm just sorry.
All right, man. We have just 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
All right, exactly at in 2 minutes time, then I will start introduce you, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, cool. So do I put my camera horizontal like you have?
Yeah.
Is that best, or what do you think is best?
I think it's better when you have it like that.
When I have it horizontal like this?
Yeah, but then, yeah.
Okay, let me try balance it.
Yeah.
Like, see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay. How many more minutes? We've got 1 minute, right?
1 minute to go.
Fine. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Always anxious. All right, we've got. Yeah.
How are you? Why are you anxious?
Things always. You need to be 100% sure. Sometimes technology can just give us trouble. But anyway, we've got a few seconds now. Let's get ready.
Okay.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings to you all watching via various channels, Facebook, YouTube, and the Dr. Fundi platform. My name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati, a specialist family physician, registered with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Today, we have an interesting interview. We're basically hearing a testimony from a South African who has just recovered from COVID-19, infection. We've been saying that, not everybody who gets infected by COVID-19 actually, succumbs to the illness. So she is actually a living testimony that you can recover. In fact, majority of people recover from the illness. Now, our special guest today is Miss Naledi Radebe, AKA Lady. Now, for those people who don't understand Sotho, Naledi actually means the star. And as I'm looking at her, I think she is a star. She's going to light up South Africa, with her experiences. And hopefully after watching this show, everyone will have hope that, in the unlikely event that they get infected, they stand more chances to recover. So our guest, like I said, is Naledi Radebe. She's a 29-year-old Joburg resident. She is a UCT graduate in politics and TV theory. She creates her own content. That's how she is making money. And she also hosts an Instagram live show. So, Ms. Radebe, welcome to Dr. Nyati's platform.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. The way we are going to do this show today, there's a two-part, to this show. The first part is just me asking you questions relating to your experience and your testimony. After around 20 to 30 minutes, we will flip this whole thing and you will be the one who will be asking questions to me. Because ever since you came publicly about a week or so ago that you are recovering from COVID-19, you posted that on Instagram, and there's been, over 5,000, views on that.
50,000.
And you now have been forced to be that person who answers questions around COVID-19. And some of those questions, you felt that they needed somebody medical to help you to answer. And so in the second session of this show, you will be the one who will be asking questions and I will try and answer to the best of my ability. Okay. All right, then. Let's shoot.
Okay.
I just want to find out. Okay. Welcome. And yeah, let's get on with it. Just tell us a little bit, what happened? What made you think that you could be having an illness? Just take us through from day one when you felt that something is not right and take us through that journey. I won't interrupt you.
Okay. Hi, everybody that's watching, and thanks for tuning in, and thanks so much for having me, Dr. Fundile. So essentially, what had happened was I woke up with the feeling that someone was sitting on my chest. That's like how I described it initially to my cousin. It was, you know, I didn't really even know the term a tight chest. To me, it just felt like someone was compressing me, or that someone was sitting on my chest, and it was making it very difficult for me to breathe. So so it's incredible because we'd been having a discussion about it the day before, and one of my friends is a doctor, and she'd kind of really got into the symptoms. And this was still at a time where there would been no real announcement from South Africa. So you were just really working off kind of information that you were picking up along the way. And that was mixed with a bit of misinformation, that was mixed with memes, that was mixed with jokes and dances. And so I had the luck of the day before sitting with a group of friends, having a conversation about what the symptoms were, and, you know, what my friend, who's a doctor, thought was one of the most prevalent symptoms. And she said, you know what, if you have difficulty breathing, then, you know, that's a very striking symptom. And then imagine to wake up the next day and feel that very feeling that she's described. I initially thought I must be having a panic attack from an overload of information. Even my cousin thought the same thing. It just seemed so unrealistic that we'd just been speaking about it, and it should strike me that way. But I think after a couple of deep breaths, I really started to realize that this was no longer just my going through something different.
It was not your mind, you know, working overtime.
Yeah, no, and I really, truly believed it was for a bit there. And so then, you kind of kick into action. And imagine at the time I was in the UK when the first symptom hit. And so that very day, I had to now start trying to figure out what to do, and we have no idea. And this is also the same day that President Cyril Ramaphosa made his first speech about the state of disaster. So there was so much to take in the process, and I had to think about, you know, do I stay here? Do I go through the healthcare system? We tried that. It didn't work. They're completely saturated in the UK. And so I booked an emergency flight that night and flew out back to South Africa, and then went straight to the doctor the very next day.
Now, so tell me, before you woke up with these symptoms, you know, of a tight chest, you had no other symptoms like, you know, sore throat or sneezing or coughing. It was just the first symptom.
Not a single sign. Like, you really as asymptomatic as I could possibly have been. And it was interesting because it's one thing if someone can feel your temperature and say you're hot, or someone can hear you coughing or see you suffering from something. But when you say, I can't breathe, and you're still even, I was still even able to hold my breath for 15 seconds. You know, we kind of try to do the home tests to see maybe it's all in my head and I can hold my breath for 15 seconds. That's long enough. No, Lids, it's maybe an exaggeration, you know, but I think it really just came down to me knowing my body and telling myself, no, something's not right, whether or not we can see it. Something here is misaligned.
So before you took the flight, what was going through your mind? You know, obviously you were worried about what you had just discussed the day before, and you had tried to seek help in the UK, and you decided, no, let me go home. Weren't you worried that maybe as you are flying back, you could actually be, you know, if you have it, you could actually be infecting others?
Yeah, for sure. That's like probably the most significant thought that goes through your head. So, you know, we went through a process of an elimination in our decision making with my family. It was like, okay, first try the national healthcare system. Right, call my friend who's a doctor. She was one of the doctors that was working on one of the or leading in COVID-19 or specializing in that. Call her. She says, we have been told, we have been mandated that if you have COVID-19 or you think that you have it, stay at home. And obviously at this time, this is the first time I'm really hearing about this thing. And when you're sick, you go to a doctor. That's how you understand the world to be. And so now to be told that if you're sick, stay at home, I just couldn't process that. And my chest is closing in. I really feel like I'm about to lose breath, potentially might get worse. You're thinking death at this point. And so obviously got in touch with my family, have a family discussion. What can we do? They didn't necessarily know too much about it. So they reached out to people that they thought would. And a lot of the people that they spoke to said essentially, there is nothing that we can do for her while she's out of the country. So now it becomes a mission of, sorry about that. So now it becomes a discussion of how am I going to get home safely without having infected other people? And so I got my hands on an N95 mask, 3mm mask, which I had heard was the one that was
the one that's highly recommended. Yes,
highly recommended that professionals use. I wore gloves on the flight. Luckily for me, my flight was just empty, and I think there was also just I think everyone had the same energy in the plane and in the airport. No one was coming near each other. No one was trying to sit in the same row as each other. We all were kind of wary of each other's spaces. And my family had made me aware that there was the potential that when I landed in SA, I might have to go into state quarantine because SA, I think, had been trying to put in measures to check fever and all that stuff. And I said, okay, what choice can one really have in that situation? If I'm
maybe
sick,
it's better to have that at home than to have that,
and it's not exactly like there was an outpour of information for quarantining in the UK in any case. So it was more clearly stated that might be an option in SA. So I said, fine, let's do it. But they checked me, no fever.
So when you came through customs, so when you came through customs, did they do the temperature scan?
Exactly, they do that. So you go through immigration, they check your temperature scan, but of course I'm asymptomatic, so I don't register because I don't have a fever. And then there's that feeling of, now I'm thinking to myself, maybe I don't have it. Maybe I've exaggerated this whole thing. Maybe I was panicking, You're now not sure because you've gone through what should be the thing to tell you that you have it. And essentially says, no, you don't. But I still was just very adamant. I was like, okay, fine. I've gone through that. Next step, get to the doctor. And we'd already pre-called the doctors and kind of warned them that I was coming in hot and that, they needed to prepare. So they ushered me straight into a room away from other patients. And my doctor did me from that point.
Yeah. All right. And then just take us through. And so you met with your doctor, took history, and what happened? Did you get tested?
So my doctor takes my general vitals. So that's, your oxygen saturation, checks your levels there. I think I was sitting at like 98 or something like that, which is pretty good. He checks, my temperature. My temperature is absolutely average. He takes a stethoscope and puts it near my lungs to hear if there's any kind of like sound in my lungs, if there's any liquid or crinkles of any sorts. So he essentially takes, all my vitals, and nothing is proving the fact that I'm ill in any way. And so in that situation, he says to me, okay, and I actually insisted. I said, please, can you check me again? I'm telling you something's not right. And he, this is at the beginning of everything. So, I think there wasn't a wealth of knowledge that I think we have now. So he's kind of saying, okay, well, maybe I think you've developed late onset asthma. And, I said, I'm 29 years old. I've never had a breathing issue in my life. And now what, at 29, at the very time that a respiratory virus has seemed to pop up in the world, I have developed asthma. So obviously this seemed quite ridiculous to me, but I mean, of course, he was working off the knowledge that he had. So he prescribed me an asthma pump, and he prescribed me anxiety medication, and absolutely insisted that I take the COVID-19 test, and I was eligible for it because I had been traveling.
You're coming from a high-risk country, and you had, respiratory symptoms.
Exactly. So so that was essentially what made me eligible for it. So I did go and get tested at the laboratories.
Yeah. What test did they conduct on you? Just for the benefit of the people who are watching. What test did they do? A swab of your nose or throat?
They did it. So yeah, for the COVID. So for the COVID-19 test is the version that I got, and I've now since heard that it's become a mouth swab, which is so lucky. But I didn't have that. I had the nose swab. So they essentially take what looks like an earbud, and it goes into your nostril, but it doesn't stop where you would normally stop.
Yeah,
I mean,
it goes deep at the back.
It went right in, and it almost felt like, they were trying to get into my brain. It was the most uncomfortable, sharp feeling. But it's like, the kind that makes your eyes water, but it's quick. Like once it goes in, and then you pull it out, and, it's done within 2 minutes, really.
Yeah. And so how long did it take for them to come back with the results?
Okay, so this is really where the story kind of gets interesting. So, so immediately, again, with the, the knowledge that I had from my doctor friend, and again, my doctor also kind of had mentioned it, but I also very much from my own self-conviction, I decided to go straight into self-isolation, just purely on the assumption, already assuming that I was sick. I think I'd rather work backwards and assume I'm sick than think that I'm not sick and walk around and carry on and then later on discover. So I was meant to get my results within 2 days, which was not the case. I ended up getting my results, I think, within 8 days. So I tested Monday, and the very next Tuesday is when the following Tuesday evening, they called me at 7:30 to tell me that I had tested positive. So I had been in that period of time under my own self-isolation. So really, I was good. I knew I was just gonna have to carry on being in self-isolation. But of course, that's the most anxious period of time, waiting, and there's much on the phone, you're calling, and my mom is going down to the labs asking what's going on. You said it was meant to be Wednesday, she's getting her results, and now it's Friday and we're still waiting. And then the Monday comes and you're still waiting, and they tell you that essentially there was a backlog in the labs and getting the results back, and particularly in the private healthcare sector, I'd say. Yeah. So
because I guess all of the results that they get, they still need to be confirmed with the National Institute of Communicable Diseases. So that's a bit of a bottleneck then, because as much as there's improved access in the private, health, but it still has to go through there. Now, just tell me though, as you were waiting that 8 days, waiting for your results, the kind of place that you stay in, I'm assuming that maybe you stay in a big house, where there's a space, for you to isolate without putting risk on other people.
No, so I actually stay in an apartment with my mom.
Yeah.
And so, I have my room, she has her room, and,
your line is a
you have
bit
your common
weak
areas.
Now.
And so that's really within, let's say, kitchen. Am I still online?
Yeah, no, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm saying, so obviously within your common areas, let's say I want to go to the kitchen to make myself food. That is really kind of where things become tricky. And so you have to now start forming a form of communication where, let's say if my mom's to make me food, for example, knock on my door, and then, I'll kind of open the door and pull the tray in from where she's put it on the ground. Or if she's in the kitchen, I'll tell her, I'm like, are you done? Yes, I'm done. You can come now. And then, cross over. And it also becomes a situation of hand sanitization becomes so much more important. Wiping down, disinfecting. Someone else will walk into my room and I don't care about this thing. Let me see how you are. Here's your tea, kind of being a mother about him, which can become quite risky.
So that was quite interesting though, and you still didn't have any results, but at least you took responsibility to minimize any chances of, of infecting your mom and whoever else that wanted to come in. Yeah, and so the results came in, and how did you feel? What went through your mind when the results came through?
Naledi? Sorry, I think we've got a bit of a backlog, but okay, it's okay, we can keep up. So the question was, what was going through my mind when I was waiting for the results, or
no, when you now received the results and they told you that you have tested positive for COVID-19, something that you felt is highly likely. That's why you took the precautions to self-isolate. Now, when that was confirmed, what went through your mind? What was the reaction on your side and also with your mom?
Okay, so first of all, there's a huge sense of vindication, because almost at every turn or step, it was it was so much of me saying that I was sick and not necessarily showing a single symptom or being able to prove that I was sick.
Yeah.
And so now it was okay. Finally, we now know that I have the virus, and it kind of also gave me a certain sense of peace. Finally, yeah. Just to know in general, even if I'd been negative, I wish I was negative, to be fair, but just to finally have a result from that. And of course, my mom, even though she had, she believed everything that I was saying, I think it struck her very hard, and she took it quite, okay, what do we do now? Are you gonna die? What comes after this? Yeah. And essentially said, no, well, we carry on going as we've been going up until now.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And so you had been given treatment anyway during that period when you were waiting for results, because the doc thought that you actually had asthma. So you were taking, were there any antibiotics or anything like that? Or it was just the stuff for the asthma?
Yeah, so just the asthma pump and the anxiety medication, but essentially the doctor, I said to him, he tells me this information. I said, okay, well, what do I do now? And he says, well, no, you do exactly what you've been doing. You treat it as symptom to symptom basis. So if you break up in a fever, treat that fever.
Then we'll do something. If
you have a headache, I had a headache at some point, there were a couple of days where I had headaches in and out, I would take a Panado. If I have, just really kind of treating the symptom as it appears.
Yes.
It almost feels as though you become your own personal doctor, which is normally what you do when you have the flu. I mean, you have the flu, you're at home, you don't have to go to a doctor that tells you, you take Corenza, you have your Med-Lemon or whatever it is. So I just really treated it symptom to symptom. And I also started, which I'd never really done before, was taking vitamins. And I know probably that's the most irresponsible thing I could say, but I really had never felt like, oh, no, I don't need vitamins, I'm quite healthy. But this was kind of like the time where I was like, okay, I need to start taking some immune boosters. I need to get a lot of vitamin C and D into me. And just really caring for it as an issue would pop up.
All right. So at least now that was confirmed. So you continued with your self-isolation. And then what happened? How often then did you have to go and see your doctor to monitor your progress? Hi, Naledi?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So I'm just asking, from that time where you were now diagnosed that you have COVID-19, did anything change in terms of how you were being managed by your doctor? Did you have to go to see him maybe every 2 days or whatever? What happened?
No. It was literally, he was very clear about it. Continue in self-isolation. And because I think given the nature of my symptoms, I didn't require, hospitalization. I didn't have my symptoms weren't intense enough for me to find reason to have to leave the house. So it's essentially I mean, of course, he made himself available to me. Should I have a question or call, or if I needed to call about some information? But really, it was just a matter of continuing as I had been before, isolating in the house. So up until now, it's been about 17 days that I've been in self-isolation. And yeah, I've just kind of like now, obviously during that period of time, I've also managed to like do my own research and figure out ways that help me and like remedying things that remedy certain things, especially with my chest.
You can share with the people,
and I've been sharing the information as I go along.
Yeah. All right. And so at some point you then. Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, I said some of the techniques. I'll share with them.
Yes, I know the stuff that you're going to share may not be medically approved, but just tell us, the stuff that you did, because sometimes we don't have, any specific treatment for a particular illness, and sometimes people will try other remedies. So just for the benefit of other people, just share with us the stuff that you ended up doing as a way of strengthening yourself.
Right. So one of them, actually, interestingly enough, is like, I have this because I can't reach my own back. So this comes from my aunt, because my uncle had pneumonia, and it's a respiratory issue, and it had helped with him to kind of like loosen mucus in his respiratory tract. And I actually saw a video of nurses that's gone viral where they've been patting each other on the back. And so she said, my aunt suggested that, you do it with like a long, either this or a newspaper that's rolled up, but essentially just like lightly tapping on my back to loosen the mucus in my chest. And I mean, initially, to be fair, I actually thought it was a bit of a joke. I was like, this is ridiculous. It's never going to work. And it has been quite helpful. And it's also, she suggests, kind of inducing a cough, even if it's not there, inducing a cough to try get the phlegm out, because essentially that's what you want. You want it to come out. Along with that, I take a Philitic like ACC 200. I've also been steaming over my humidifier and put a Vicks Vapor Rub inside it. But I also suggested you can do that with a bowl of hot water and Vicks inside it, and you put your face over ukuma, like if like grandmothers always used to so just a couple of, that's probably the two main ones that I have been consistently doing. Using.
In fact, there was science in that, because if you were admitted in hospital, they would have called for a physiotherapist to come and do that, to try and dislodge the phlegm within your airways. So you were actually improvising, but doing what would have been done had you been in hospital. So I actually think that was a good thing for you to do, because one of the challenges is that, some people, they produce so much phlegm and it's so hard, and it actually contributes to reducing the gas exchange within the lungs. So that was good for you. I mean, that was good of you to actually find a way of trying to dislodge the mucus. All right. And so you then decided, no, I now need to tell the world that I'm recovering from COVID-19. Yes. Why did you do that?
I think, okay, so initially when I first heard the news, when I had just gotten the information, the first people I called were the people that I was in contact with. I wanted to let them know, just in case that they've been experiencing symptoms, the same way that I kind of had been let know. I will later on, I would discover that someone would call me and let me know that they had tested positive for COVID-19. And so I also thought that was a good act of like a good moral act that I think
a responsible human being. Yeah. But now tell me, just before we go further, after you had decided to go on Instagram, did you get to understand or know if you've had any contact with somebody who was COVID-19 infected?
yeah, so initially I was convinced that I had gotten this while I was in the UK. I mean, that was just my first train of thought. I was like, I've gotten this in the UK, but I'd only been there for 4 days before I flew out.
Yeah.
So I was convinced up until that. And then the week that I was self-isolating, I got a phone call from a friend that I'd been with just before I'd left, who said, listen, I was with someone and I was with them. They had somebody who had it and potentially I might have it. So I suggest you go get tested as well.
Yeah.
And so I luckily had already been tested. I said, oh, well, that's funny because I've been tested. But it was an interesting exchange because the way that I assumed that I got it. And of course, life isn't a vacuum. You can never really pinpoint the exact moment because you just come across so many people and surfaces that you're targeting. But I think the assumed moment that I would have contracted it is that we got into a cab and then I got home, hugged my friend and walked into the house. And I think from that point on, that's when I assume I contracted it, which is then, of course, you have to call your friends. So obviously now having got the information, I have to call my friends in the UK and say, hey, listen, we were together and I've now tested positive for this. Please take care. Also, kind of just like making sure that they're okay first. And then after that point, I was like, right. So now we really haven't heard of anyone that has it. And there have been a lot of rumors and misinformation going around about the fact that Africans can't get it. And so I just thought, I thought to myself, okay, at the most basic idea, I thought, let me just tell my friends because they all still think I'm in the UK at this point. So let me just clarify some things. I did not expect for there to be such a reaction to it.
What reaction did you get?
What? So it was 50,000 views on the video, which was just, I really just like shocking. And it was just circulated so many times. And I could have gotten like for the past like week or whatever, 50 messages a day, either like just of support, but a lot of questions as well. Just, hey, can you help us? But of course I got backlash as well. And so then I had to do another video, just very, very much clarifying the steps that I took to trying very much to contain what was me being potentially sick and me working off information that I had at that point. But I mean, it was not a wealth of information, not the information we have now. Just very much working on my instinct, my logic and stuff. But in general, to say that there's been a huge outpour of support, and really it's kind of, I think most importantly, made it okay for us to share information amongst each other and to take it seriously, that like Africans can get it, a young person can get it, and how to navigate through that. Yes.
So you basically dealt with the myths that were out there, because I remember a few weeks ago, so many people believed that, if you are an indigenous African, then you somehow have some protection, which is obviously not true. So you then got overwhelmed by people asking you a lot of questions about the disease, to a point where at times they forgot that that's not your area of expertise.
I mean, I speak. Oh, sorry, please. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
No. What just do you remember any of the ridiculous questions that people asked you? Or questions that you thought were very difficult, that you had to field? I know you're still going to ask me questions a little later, but just one or two questions that, are still in your mind that you got asked.
Sorry, I just lost you for a second then.
All right. No, I'm saying, do you remember any questions that you had to field that you actually found quite difficult or ridiculous, or even the abuse that you say you got online?
Yeah. So some of the more, okay, so yeah, so I'm a little of a patient, okay? And I think that those lines somehow got murky, and a lot of people now believe that I was a
Yeah. Hi, Naledi. Hi, Naledi.
professional. You also have to remember that even as I'm not suffering from the general idea, so I can't even nearly speak to the the fever and all of those kinds of symptoms, because I just have not experienced them. So but a lot of the questions that I would get would be, people really also going through kind of the same thing. I felt a tight chest, I didn't know what to do about it. And a lot of asthmatic people as well reached out to me. Hey, I have asthma. I'm so scared I wouldn't tell the difference between, my chest closing from asthma and my chest closing from this thing. Can you help? And that was also kind of the tricky part, is now I've been prescribed this asthma pump. And so I now look like I've had asthma, but I've never had asthma. So I said, I could not even nearly tell you the difference between having an asthma attack and having this, because I've never had an asthma attack. And yeah, I think a lot of, if we're talking about like, the abuse that I got, it was more around like, oh, you purposefully contracted this and brought it back to Africa to like infect the vulnerable. Oh, you were so irresponsible that you used your privilege to come home and self-quarantine at home instead of staying in the UK. And I mean, obviously these are just oversimplified versions of the truth, because you're in a situation. I always say that really, I genuinely believe that I made the right decisions, and I took as precautionary steps as I could possibly have taken. And the rhetoric around at that time, if you think about it, was borders are closing.
Hi, Naledi. Hi, Naledi.
Yes.
Yeah, I lost you there for a moment.
Oh, at what point?
Hello.
Hi, can you just hold on? Just hold on a second. Let me just try technology.
Yeah, your bandwidth there is a bit on the weak side.
Let me goodness. Okay, let me try just on my own. Is that working? Have you got me?
Oh, it's fine. I can see you, but now I can't see your face. All right. Yes, now I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Yes. So I was just saying that it was really just, I think just a lot of questions from people that were experiencing symptoms and that were very scared. I noticed that there was a lot of fear to even speak to like their families. I had a conversation with a girl who's scared that she has it. She was exposed to somebody that had COVID-19, and that person had since passed away, and now she was afraid to tell her family for the fear that there's a stigma around it. Like, I think I might have it. I had a conversation with her where I said, the only way to keep anyone safe in this situation is to let them know. You have to share the information. That's how you protect someone. Because then they are able to personally react to you and say, okay, we're going to stay out of your way. We'll stay out of your room. But if your mom doesn't know that you potentially are suffering from this thing, she's going to be walking in and, checking your temperature with her own hand, and, then the situation gets out of control. So,
all right. No, then, so, but most of the abuse that you got, I think it was maybe coming from fear, and most times is ignorance as well, because instead of people going to learn the facts, they just hear whatever that's being shared on social media, and then so it's actually a demonstration of the need for improved public education on this kind of thing, because as more and more people get infected, they're going to be experiencing this stigma, and even discrimination, you know. And so at what point then did you decide that, you know what, let me now, you know, play an advocacy role to actually help to educate people? Was it because of the negative experiences that you had?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was actually spurred more by the positive experiences. Just people really just ask me questions, but I realized, and it was a learning curve from the negative ones, just how there was a great sense of ignorance in some of the comments, and I realized, okay, wow, so this is just, and I had to take it to myself and say, this is not necessarily about you. Now there's like a greater issue at hand. And I think also just personally wanting to know more about my own condition and what was going on with me. And now that I almost felt the responsibility of, you know, I have the support. I've told the story. I have now support. These people are also wanting, they're on this ride with me. We're all kind of like riding together to gain more information. And so that's really where I started kind of like putting effort into doing a lot more research, having conversations with people that are medical specialists, and doing interviews so that I could kind of get the message out that, you know, this shouldn't be stigmatized. This is happening. This is a reality. Let's deal with it.
Okay. So has there been any follow-up test, you know, to look at whether you still have, you know, the virus, you know, on your nose or respiratory system?
Right. This question is timed so well, because I had a discussion with my doctor this morning that really just surprised me. Initially, the discussion was that I was meant to test this week, to take another test to see if I've come out negative. So in order for you to be cleared of this, you have to be tested twice negative.
Twice, yes.
Yes. So I was initially meant to have a test this week, because it had been, I think, past a 2-week period of me having been ill. And so they just assume, okay, we'll test you then. You'll actually explain more of this when I ask you some questions. But since that was the plan, but I spoke to my doctor this morning, and he's now come back to tell me that apparently the labs have now, or at least within the lab that I tested at in the private healthcare sector, has decided that they want to focus more on new cases, and they don't want to be backlogged, because essentially it has to still go through the same process as it did initially. So it is now a situation where I'm not going to get tested. And not unless I mean, he said, unless you decide you really want to force the situation, then I suppose you could. But he said, we really recommend that you don't test to find out if you're negative. And so it's essentially the suggestion that we're just going to assume after this lockdown that I don't have it anymore.
So, okay, I understand the reason why they are doing it, but, you know, but there's a risk on the other hand. What if you haven't completely cleared the virus? Because then, you know, there could still be, you know, a risk out there. So, but I think they're just being pragmatic, because yes, there's a big problem of the backlog in terms of testing at this moment. And if now I had to decide between somebody who's almost fully recovered versus somebody who needs to know they are acutely sick, who do I test? You know, or then I would obviously use that for the person who's newly diagnosed or who needs to be diagnosed. But it is a bit of a problem though for you, because it may still continue a situation where people see you as potentially infectious. And that creates a problem where you then have to extend your self-isolation, you know? Anyway,
No. I was just gonna say that that's kind of that's exactly where my concern lies, is now that it's one thing to now know that I have it, but it'd be very nice to kind of know when I don't have it. And
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to cope without having that final confirmation of having closed that chapter.
Yes,
But
yes.
I mean, I would have been at the end of the lockdown, I'd have been in isolation for well over a month, probably something like 40 days at that point. So one can only hope that within that 40-day period, really, I've gotten over this flu or virus.
Yeah. All right. We've gone through for 45 minutes and it was supposed to be 30 minutes, but your story was quite interesting and I hope it has inspired a lot of other people out there, but also exposed some of the weaknesses of the health system, both in the UK and even here. Because yes, it's the first time that the world is experiencing this kind of public health challenge in a long time. And so some of the rules are being made as we go. And, they have to make certain decisions that are not 100% right. Like, for example, you should have your test, to clear you. But now you are in a situation where you don't know if you are cleared or not. But I understand, though, the broader thinking there. So, you know what I'm suggesting? Let's take a short break. We're going to end this meeting. We're going to end this meeting. Then I'm going to schedule another one at quarter past 4. And you will then take over that one. And you'll be the one who will be firing questions. And I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. All right.
Okay.
So,
great. Thanks so much,
to our viewers out there, we will be back at quarter past 4.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, man.